Okay, so here's some examples, and I'm kind of going by questions that you guys have left me this afternoon. First problem I want to take a look at is this. Determine the subset of integers whose elements are greater than -5 but less than 7. We're going to look at the integers on the number line. So here we go. Let me kind of do this a little better. Yeah, it's nicer. Let's go ahead and say, okay, 0's in the middle. Alright, we have what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then that's positive values, right? To the right of 0, we have our positive values. And then -1, 2, -3, -4, -5. You can go on a little bit if you'd like. But -1, -2. If I label it, here's our real number line. And what happens with the real number line is, this is all these integer whole steps, but it's also all the little fractions in between as well. So kind of keep that in mind. But we are just trying to get a look at these integers, though. Okay, so we're only looking at the numbers I've labeled. And the subset of the integers that we're looking at. Okay, so we're looking at the integers. Anyway, just to kind of remind you what are exactly the integers. Okay, so z integers dot means we're coming up in this pattern from the negative infinity. Okay, and we cross over 0, which is neither negative nor positive, 0. Okay, then we go into the positives. And then dot, 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 in that fashion we go into infinity. So these are my overset of integers, and we're concerned with a subset, okay? And so here's how this goes. By the way, let's take a look at some notation on this other side here, okay? So this means the set is or members of a set, and this symbol here means subset, okay? So it's kind of the same little symbol, but without the little middle thing. So this one is a subset of, okay? Alright, so we know one subset, for example, the set that contains 0, for example. 0 would be one subset of the integers, okay? Just to kind of let you see how one use of it, okay? But that's not what we're concerned with. We're concerned with these integers that are greater than -5. And remember, they're talking about the integers, okay? And so we're talking about, oh, wait, I didn't mean to do that one. Let me not do that yet. Okay. Let's just go between -5 and 7. We'll talk about those exact values in a minute. Okay, because that is a big deal. So we want these values, right? Here, right? We want these integers that are between -5 and 7. Now, the big question is, are -5 and 7 included? So he says greater than -5, right? So we want to kind of go above -5, but then we also want to go less than 7. Does -5 belong to this subset? So no, he says above it, not it, right? Only above it, and only below 7, not at 7, but below it. If it would say or equal to, or if it would say at least -5, at most 7, then we would include -5 and 7. But in this case, we do not include -5 and 7, okay? So no -5 and no 7. So which integers are indicated here? So we're going to say we are looking for a subset, including what? Just -4. No dots, by the way. Okay, and then 6. So this set is a subset of the integers. Okay? And it contains the values that are greater than -5, but less than 7. Okay, on that note, the next problem I want to take a look at is actually a question from a student asking me, how should I state multiplication on a Word document? Should I use an asterisk, an X, or a dot? Well, typically, we could use any of those things, but at this level, I would prefer, of course, if you had to write, say, 2 times 3, you had to exhibit that in a Word file. I mean, I would like to, in the order of my preference personally, of course, you could do the dot, but remember it's not a period though, not a punctuation, like .com. This is a raise at about the center of the 2 and 3. It was written like this. It's kind of like this, okay? And you can find that in Word. If you find it, great. If not, if you can't find it, I kind of don't have time to go into it on here. If you cannot find it, the next level of preference, I think I like the asterisk. Because you'll see a lot of computer science people, other people who deal with logic, they do use an asterisk too. Okay? And then, by the way, Shift 8 is an asterisk. Everyone should be able to find that. If there are no variables involved, a lowercase x is almost okay. So make a little note to self, using an X can be used only if there are no variables, okay, in your problem, okay. So this is algebra class, so that's probably not going to happen very often or for very long. So yeah. Simplify 16 divided by 2 to the -1. So remember that we talked earlier about having a negative exponent, and it just means to invert or take the reciprocal. It's basically telling you take the inverse, the multiplicative inverse. So let's go a step over here. And by the way, our order of operations. Okay, let me just kind of go over this quickly. Okay, when you have a large thing to simplify, evaluate, or whatever it is, you want to go in this order. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Okay, so we have parentheses, okay, of course, or other grouping symbols. I'm just going to put the word grouping. Then once you've worked your way from the inside of parentheses, you want to go out to exponents. Okay, carry out any exponents if possible. Of course, if you have an x squared, you don't know what x is equal to. So basically you can simplify it, but you won't be able to really get a number on that. You leave it there that way, and we'll kind of review how to handle that when we get to that. Exponents are next. Then multiply or divide left to right. Remember that, left to right. Okay, and then the last two, add, and this is the very last thing you do, add or subtract left to right. Okay, so let's kind of get that. Let's do these. All right, simplifying. So we are going to do the exponent first. We have 16 divided by, so we can't do anything with this division symbol until we deal with the -1 on the 2. So remember this, that you can write anything over 1, just kind of give it a fraction look and to help you suss out the reciprocal. So remember that to get the exponent to be positive, we want to move that factor down to the other side of the fraction bar. So now it becomes a +1. Now what becomes of this numerator? This becomes 1. Okay? Let's switch that over. So 1 over 2, right? And so really, that, all right, now we're talking. So there you have that. So now what do I have? I have 16 divided by 1/2. Here's a little thing to kind of spur your memory. 16 divided by 1/2. Division by a fraction, when I have a fraction in the denominator, or what we call the divisor. Okay? We can turn this into multiplication. Now watch, you're going to go, I just flipped that. What are you doing? Multiplication of by the reciprocal. So now we got to flip it again. How you like me now? So 16 times 2 is 32. So yeah, this fraction has done plenty flipping, I think. But it's pretty flipping easy. So so just practice. It'll get easier. Okay? So here we are. Let's go to this evaluate. X plus 2y minus z. And then we're going to have when x is 2, y is -1, and z is -2. So big recommendation from me is when you have some numbers you have to plug in place of different variables, you need to use a template style. And here's what I just kind of call it that. So we have x. A template style meaning I just open up a set of parentheses, a small set of parentheses, everywhere I have a variable I need to plug into. So I'm creating a little template of the problem. That way, if these guys would change at any other future part of the problem on a test or something, I can kind of go back and say, oh, okay, what is it again? All right, here's the open places, that I need to go and plug numbers into. So that's my little open sets of parentheses. And what you do is just make a little note, like here's where the x was, here's where the y was, this is where the z was, okay? So what numbers go in there? X should be 2, y should be -1, and you really need to open the parentheses and do it with the parentheses, because these negative numbers could really mess a problem up if you're not careful. So, okay, now that we have everything plugged in correctly, and double check it, make sure, we're going to go through the order of operations just to kind of be safe. Inside the parentheses, I'm good. Okay, there are no exponents to carry out. And so multiply and divide left to right. So we're going to come handle these bits of multiplication, and that includes your sign rules, okay? So this 2, I'm just going to bring the first 2 down. We don't need the parentheses anymore. But here I have +2 times -1. Okay, so +2 times -1 is what? -2. So -2 is what's next, okay? And then finally, the opposite of -2, okay? So what is that? The opposite of -2 is +2. Okay? And then, of course, add and subtract from left to right. So we have what? 2 minus 2, 0. Okay, and then 0 plus 2. So finally, you get a 2. And great to hear from a lot of you. Some good responses from our first session. I'm proud of you guys. Do not be afraid to ask me questions. I can't always get right to you, but I sure will try. And I will get back to you, though. Okay? So just, keep them coming. Thanks, guys.